Hi, everybody. My name is Dan Courtine. I am here with my friend Chris Lepardi, and we want to welcome you to our first episode of our podcast series entitled Growing Through Grief Real Discussions for Those in It and Those Walking Alongside. Chris and I have known each other for approximately 6 to 8 months. Sadly, we got to know each other because we both are suffering through the tragedy of having our sons pass away within the last few years. It's one of those things that it's been an awesome connection for us because we can walk together in a way that nobody else can walk with us. But the purpose of this podcast is that we want to hopefully help answer a lot of the questions that people have raised to us and how they can support us. We're thrilled to death to get started on this journey together. This podcast is sponsored by Jameson's Joy, which is the foundation that I set up for my son Jameson, and it is sponsored by Miles for Mason, which is the foundation that Chris is in the process of setting up for his son Mason. So, Chris, welcome. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thanks, Dan. I'm super excited to be here. I know we've been talking about this for a couple months now, and I'm glad to see that we're finally starting it, and hopefully we can help some people out with understanding what we've been through and giving them some ideas on how they can get through their grief or how you can help support someone that you know that's going through grief.
Awesome. Well, I know that was kind of your purpose. Is there anything else you want to add about why you want to do this?
No, I just like you said, we had that great connection with each other after Mason passed away. I know Jameson passed away a little bit before, and you were really a great guide for me through my first year. And I think you and I as a team, we can really help a lot more people by doing this.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think for me, I'm excited. I'm excited to hopefully give people a glimpse into what's going on in my mind. What There's a lot of things going in our mind that we don't share. There's a lot of things in our minds that we let out that people see but misinterpret. It's just crazy what's going on in our heads as we deal with what we're going through. And I hope that this podcast will help others see that, and again be able to just to connect with us a little bit better. And so we're excited to do it. Thank you all for whoever's listening out there. We appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Definitely, thank you for joining us. We're excited, and eventually, I'm sure we'll come up with a game plan where you guys could send questions in to us and let us know what we can help answer for you.
Absolutely. So, Chris, why don't you take the time you need? Tell us about your family and tell us about your little hero Mason.
Awesome, thanks, Dan. So, yeah, wow, where to begin? I am in the Air Force. I've been in the Air Force for 20 years. I've been married to my wife Amanda now for 15 of those 20 years in the Air Force, but we've been together well before that. Amanda and I started dating in high school at the end of our sophomore year, and we've been together ever since. She's an amazing wife. I love being with her every single moment. Through our time being together, we have four sons. My oldest son is Ryan. He's 13. He's gonna be 14 in a couple months. It's crazy to even think about. Then I have Aiden, joyous little guy, tons of fun. He is 11, about to be 12 in a couple days, actually. Then we had Mason. Mason would be 8 now. He was 7 when he passed away. And our little guy, Carson, he's 4. He's just full energy, always running around, tons of fun. Uh, Being a military family is a little unique and different compared to a lot of other families. My boys and Amanda, we've moved cross country numerous times. I started off at Little Rock. That was my first base. Really trying to learn how to become an adult, to be honest. I joined the Air Force right at 18. Um, then I moved to Goodfellow Air Force Base, which is in San Angelo, Texas, and that's where Ryan and Aiden were born. Then we got to have an awesome opportunity, and we went up to Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska. We did 3 years there. Then we went to Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. That's where Mason was born, so Florida is always going to have a special place in my heart. That's where Mason was born. He absolutely loved the beach, even as a little guy. We went back to Alaska, crazy enough. People were like, "You left Florida for Alaska?" I was like, "Yeah, I missed Alaska. I had to go back." So I went back and we did another 4 years there. And then we moved to Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho, which is about an hour outside of Boise. And that was a great assignment. I loved it there. Right now, we're currently at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. Yeah, so after Mason, let me back up a little bit and tell you guys the story a little bit about Mason. Um, Mason, like I said, was born in Florida. Extremely funny, awesome little dude, full of energy, extremely athletic. Um, yeah, I think I attribute that a lot to, when you're 6, 7 year old and your older brothers are teenagers or pre-teenagers, he's trying to run with the pack and stay in the mix. And that just gave him an amazing athletic ability. Awesome at track, awesome at soccer, very fast, could run for miles and miles without stopping. Um, so when we were in Idaho, this was right at the beginning of the pandemic. I actually got really sick with pneumonia. I had the flu and I got pneumonia. Mason and his older brother Ryan also had the flu about a month before that. We had thought that Mason and Ryan had completely recovered and that I had just gotten the flu and pneumonia from some other way. Um, Mason was doing pretty good though. He was still running around, playing, having a lot of fun. He was a little tired, but nothing where it caused alarm for me and Amanda, where we thought, something was wrong. He had a little cough. I was going back and forth with the doctor. We are trying to get him an appointment, but with it being the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was crazy. Everyone was freaking out, including doctors, and they would not see him. They refused. Um, so it was difficult to, you know, while I could explain his symptoms of what was going on, which was pretty much just a dry cough, and he was a little tired. Um, they chalked it up to allergies, and there was not much I could really do about it. So during that time, it was actually extremely crazy time. Besides the pandemic, our little guy Carson actually broke his femur on the trampoline. So if you ever dealt with a kid that's broken a femur, they're basically a newborn again. You have to do everything for them again. So I'm still recovering from pneumonia. Carson broke his femur. And then one day, Mason wasn't feeling real well. I was on shift at the fire department, and I remember Amanda giving me a call just saying, "Hey, Mason's not feeling good. I think something's wrong. I think you should go into the ER." So we took him to the ER. They found out he had pneumonia, gave us the medicine, and sent us on our way and said, "Follow up with your primary care doctor." I thought that was the end of it, to be honest with you. I really did. But as soon as I got him home, Amanda called me right back right away, said something was wrong. It looked like Mason was having a seizure. So told her to call 911, and I rushed home, and the ambulance came, and we rushed into the ER, and um, we weren't sure what was going on. It looked like he was having a seizure, but he wasn't. We ended up finding out he had a condition called ADEM, but that was farther along down the road. At the time, the symptoms were very similar to a seizure, of just kind of, flopping around a little bit, can't really control himself. He kind of had like a stare off in the middle of nowhere. We got transported to Boise Children's Hospital, and the neurologist couldn't figure it out what it was. They really thought that he might have had a reaction to the antibiotic they gave Mason for the pneumonia. So they sent us on our way that next day. We thought we were going to be in the clear. We thought, Amanda and I were very watchful. He slept in our bed that night. We watched him like a hawk. But then the very next morning, the same thing happened again. It looked like he was having another seizure. So we called 911 again. We rushed him to the hospital in Mountain Home, Idaho. It's a really small ER, so he got life flighted to Boise right away. Because it was COVID, Amanda and I couldn't be on the helicopter with him, so he flew by himself to Boise, and then Amanda and I, we were speeding to Boise. It's an hour drive, and we probably made it in about 35 minutes. I was going so fast. We got there. Because of COVID, only one of us could go up. So I went up. Amanda stayed in the vehicle with our other sons. and it was just a waiting game. Then they were trying to figure out what was going on. They ended up doing a CAT scan, and they found these little lesions on his brainstem and around his brain, and that's what ADEM is. Basically, what ADEM is it's um, his immune system stopped attacking the pneumonia and started attacking the brain. They don't know why that happens. They haven't figured that out, and it's always going to haunt me in the sense that kids typically recover from it. It has a 90 to 95% survival rate, so it's always going to bother me, of course, that I'm in that 5 to 10% where my son didn't make it. Um, the typical treatment was steroids to reduce his brain swelling. It's usually very effective. Um, it just didn't work for Mason, unfortunately. His kept progressing, getting worse, and between decisions between the doctors and just how it all worked out, unfortunately, we lost our son Mason, and it was really hard. Of course, obviously, I can't even explain the pain, to be honest with you. And I know we're going to get into that more later, so I don't want to talk too much about that right now. But with that, a lot of emotions of how everything went down. Amanda and I held Mason in our arms as he passed away. We had to make the decision to take him off of the breathing machine because he was essentially brain dead from ADEM. So very difficult. We're going to talk about that more. Like I said, I don't want to get too into that. That leads me to how we got to miles for Mason. Like I said before, Mason was a big runner, awesome with sports, loved it, and I'm not a great runner, but I like running, and so I was actually training for a marathon before I got pneumonia. So, in order to remember Mason, I started dedicating each one of my runs to Mason. I would post a picture online so all my friends could see a picture of Mason and just say, "Hey, here's Mason. Here's what we were doing. This run is for him." And I started doing it every day, and that's kind of how Miles for Mason started. We had some really good friends in Alaska that ended up setting up a virtual 5K for him, the very first one in August of last year, the virtual Miles for Mason 5K. And we just decided, you know what, we want to keep running with that. We want to keep going with that. We want to make a foundation to, first off, remember Mason. We want to make a foundation that can help kids play sports. And we also, it's a lot of extra, but we also want to see what we can do to help do more research for ADA so other families don't have to go through this. So, like Dan said, we're in the process right now of setting up the nonprofit Miles for Mason. Dan's been a great help in mentoring me with that. And listen soon. I'll let you guys know some more details because we're going to be doing another virtual Miles for Mason 5K coming up this August. So that's, in a nutshell, how everything happened. And, I'm looking forward to being able to tell you guys my story a little bit more and even more detail as we go on.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Chris. I know one of the things that struck out as you were talking is your friends when Mason first passed and you started this virtual 5K, or you started your love of running and Mason's love of running, and as you shared that story with people, how your friends were listening. And I didn't hear you say that you asked them to do a virtual 5K. If I understood it correctly, they just stepped up and did it on their own to honor Mason.
That's right. Yeah. So Alaska is obviously really near and dear to our heart. That was our best memories, especially with Mason. We weren't in Idaho very long before the pandemic started, so we didn't really get settled in deep there. But our Alaska family, I call them family because they're all my family up there at the Eielson Air Force Base Fire Department. They took care of me, and so did the guys at Mountain Home. All the Air Force firefighters really took care of me and reached out. But those friends at Eielson, they want to plant a tree for Mason at his old school right outside his classroom, and they wanted to set this up as a fundraiser to raise money for that tree and just help us out any way we could, and I couldn't thank them more.
Yeah, great. I think that's one of the things, as Chris alluded to, we're going to talk about this so many times over the course of this podcast series, but I know I could go on with example after example of things that my friends and family did. Words are great, but actions, you guys have all heard the phrase actions speak louder than words. And in a tragedy like losing your child, yeah, actions speak. And I think again, the thing that sticks out in Chris's case for all of his friends who are listening, if you were involved in setting up that virtual 5K, I have to imagine that that was just an enormous, enormous blessing for Chris and Amanda and all the boys. That your friends and your family truly listened, and it wasn't words that you were saying, but it was the kind of the hints you were just giving out there with whatever words and actions, whatever, and they were able to figure out on their own, this is a way I think I can help.
Yeah, it really was, and especially like it's really my way of making sure Mason's not forgotten about. When you lose a child, it's so hard to explain the way it changes you mentally and physically, and yeah, just them setting that up really changed the game and changed my perspective on the way I was looking at things. I didn't have a lot of hope at the time, but it's given me something to hope for and to work towards for Mason, and that's why it's so important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why don't you, our viewers are looking at your logo for your nonprofit on our screen. You want to talk about how you came up with that
Yeah,
design and what the meaning of everything is?
yeah, I would love to. So, sorry if I'm looking down. I'm looking down at my shirt because I'm wearing a Miles for Mason shirt. So obviously ADEM awareness, that's one of our big things that we want to focus on, is making sure people understand what ADEM is and how it affects other families, because it actually affects quite a bit of families as I've done more and more research. So we really want to help find a way to hopefully maybe one day find a cure for that, or earlier detection so that it doesn't affect people so much. And then the black and white ribbon is for ADEM awareness specifically. So that's why we have that in there. The dragonfly is important to myself and Amanda. When we lost Mason, we kept seeing dragonflies a lot, and we just attributed that to Mason trying to visit us and let us know he was with us in spirit. So it was really important that we recognize that and use that in the symbol. And then it might be hard to see on the picture, but the Mason on there for Miles for Mason, that's Mason's actual writing from one of his homework assignments. So it's just his little touch to the logo that we really wanted to make sure he was represented in there for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's important for people to remember that logos have meaning, and we didn't just throw something together that looked good. There's a lot of thought that goes into it to make sure that it's just right for what we want to, the message we want to send out.
Yeah, 100% for sure. I agree. It means a lot to me. I wear a lot of Miles for Mason shirts, and people ask me about it, and I have the joy of telling them about Mason, and that's what I like the most about it.
Absolutely. And then my final question for now is, you're in the process of setting up your nonprofit and all that. What's the way that right now that people can follow what you're already doing?
Yeah, so right now we only have a Facebook group page, Miles for Mason. That's all you got to search. It'll be on there, and you can just like that page. We're going to be sharing the link soon in terms of the virtual run, what date it's going to be. We're also looking out and figuring how, if people want to buy T-shirts for the run, how we're going to do that. We're in the process now. Amanda and I we're still kind of deciding whether we want to set up a nonprofit here or because we're going to be moving again really soon. Dan, as you know, whether we want to do it here, if we want to wait since we're going to be in that next state. So it's on the cusp. We're really close, but we're just waiting a little bit more to find out where we're going next.
Awesome. So yeah, everybody stay tuned. Chris is they're working on it, and it's big things to come with Miles for Mason that we're excited about, and we'll certainly keep everybody updated as we proceed with this podcast series. So, well, yeah, Chris, thanks for sharing your story. It's been a great thing getting to know you so far, and hearing Mason's story. One of the things we've talked about already is that it's therapeutic, just talking to each other and talking to people about our boys, and it's very helpful when I see the posts of Mason and his picture, and I think it was today you posted that video of you and him sledding, and you commented on hearing his voice, and yes, I agree with that completely, and it's therapeutic to hear your son's voice because it reminds me of my son's voice.
Yep, well, I appreciate that,
So,
and yeah, it's crazy the little things that make such a difference now that I never. It's not that I didn't know they were important, but I didn't think about it as in depth as I do now because of everything that happened.
right. So, well, great. Thanks. Well, my story, it's interesting talking with Chris and other grieving dads of how many similarities there are in stories, and at the same point, how many differences there are. My family decided that we were going to move to the mountains of North Carolina in 2018. I was losing my job at the current school I was teaching at, so since I had to find a new job teaching anyways, we figured that we would pursue our dream of living in the mountains. And I applied out here and I was able to secure a job very quickly. So we knew right away that we were going to come to the mountains and live the rest of our perfect life out here. Erica's father lived out here, so that was great. We loved the mountain life, camping, fishing, hiking, tubing down the river, all that stuff. And so we were all set. And in July of 2019, we made the move and started our new perfect life. It was important not only for the fun side of things for us to move, but therapeutic as well for our whole family because we've had quite the run of deaths in our family the last 6 years. My mom passed unexpectedly in 2015. In 2018, we lost Erica's mother suddenly, and it was the day after the funeral when we got back home in Raleigh that I got the phone call that my aunt had passed away. So we were hit back to back with those two losses. And so moving to the mountains was just kind of a reset for our family, um, mentally as well, so we could recharge. And we had the perfect life. We made all these plans. And Jameson had never had any health issues at all. And we went through the mountain life. We played. He did great in school. He played soccer, and everything was perfect. And then on February 26th of 2019, we came home from school just like we did every day. Jameson's brother Reese and he went outside and they played basketball in the driveway for about 2 hours, and everything was perfectly normal, perfectly fine. We had dinner totally normal. We put him to bed totally normal. And once the boys were down, I went in and turned on the Duke Virginia Tech basketball game. And it was about an hour, hour and a half later, Jameson was in our bedroom throwing up and screaming in pain and paranoid. His words were, "Is this the flu?" And that was his big fear. And in hindsight, God, we wish it was the flu that he had had. We would take that in an instant. Um, we knew that obviously the whole night was going to be rough, so I went out to the living room and we got the couch ready for Jameson to sleep on that, and I was going to sleep next to him. And we laid down, and he tossed and turned and tossed and turned. I don't think he was able to sleep another second the entire night. I don't think he was in pain. I didn't hear him moaning and groaning, and I kept asking him if he was okay, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not hurting, I'm just uncomfortable." So that encouraged me, I guess. Um, and all night long, I just kept laying there thinking, should I take him into the hospital? Should I go or not? And it's like, and then I had the flip side. It's the flu. They're going to just send us home with nothing that they can do. So I just laid there, and I didn't sleep another wink the whole night either because I was just wrestling, listening to him toss and turn and wondering, should I take him? Should I take him? And somewhere around 4:30 or 5 in the morning, after just failing to sleep all night, he wanted to move into his bed. So we figured we would try it. So he got up, he tried to walk, and he collapsed on his knees on his way to his bedroom. And I just thought he was exhausted from not having slept all night. And so I picked him up, and he was just limp. You could just tell he had no energy. I got him into his bed, and tucked him in, and then I laid down on the floor next to him again. And it didn't take very long at all that he just said, "Dad, I can't sleep with you in here." And in hindsight, that statement hurts because those are the last words that I heard him say. He obviously didn't mean anything negative about it, and I totally understand it. But my last words that I heard from my son were him asking me to leave his room. But I did because I wanted him to try to rest. And a few minutes later, Erica went in just to kind of hug and check on him, and she did whatever she did and tucked him back in. And then about 10 or 15 minutes, I went in again and just to check on him, and I saw his eyes had rolled up, and I just knew right then. You just have that feeling when you see it. So I pulled him out of bed and I started CPR on him on the floor. Erica was calling 911. We have so many heroes that we could identify, but our hero, Luther Shipman, is a member of our local volunteer fire department, and he lives just a quarter mile down the road. He was at our house it seemed like it was within a minute or two of Erica calling. His response was amazing. And he came in and took over CPR, and within, I don't know, it was all blur, but within a minute, if not less, he had Jameson in the ambulance, and they were taking off, strapping him in and taking off. So again, we knew, I think I already knew that he was gone just looking at him and not seeing any response. I think in my gut I knew. So they took him to the hospital. We got Reese ready and got dressed really quickly, went to the hospital, and we waited in the waiting room for about 30 minutes or so, and then the doctor came out and gave us the news that they had tried everything that they could, and Jameson hadn't made it. And the initial feeling for us, it wasn't as much the sadness as the shock, because literally 12 hours earlier, we had a perfectly healthy boy playing with his brother for 2 hours shooting basketball. And just like that, he was gone with no warning. We didn't get to say goodbye, give him that last hug, tell him we loved him, any of that stuff. And that's a haunting memory that just, it's going to stick with us forever. Obviously, we were flooded. I think, like Chris already alluded to, we were flooded right away with friends and family just calling us, expressing their condolences. We had tons of meals provided immediately, and we had a lot of people that just started sending in money for funeral costs and just at meals and just everything. And it quickly became clear to us that the money that was coming in needed to go to something bigger than our family. And that's where it takes me back to Christmas time of 2018. Jameson and Reese loved the show American Ninja Warrior, and they spent hours, probably way too much time, watching television, watching that show. And they could name every single athlete on the show. They watched the same episode repeatedly, and so we thought for Christmas time that we would purchase the home version of the show. So we bought the American Ninja Warrior home kit, and it was like 5 or 6 boxes of obstacles and things, and we set them behind our couch because obviously it was wintertime, and we're going to wait for spring, more of our perfect life that we had going. Fast forward to February 27th when Jameson had passed, and the following days when we started getting all the money sent in, we knew that it needed to be something bigger. So we had the idea right away that we wanted to try to honor Jameson and give back to the community by hopefully building a fitness course, a Ninja Warrior fitness course somewhere in the town. And so that idea started circulating in my head. And then it was just a couple days later, we were planning the services, and I got an email from Fuquay Varina, where we moved from, near Raleigh, North Carolina. And it was the mother of Jameson's best buddy in that area. a great young man named Caden Gregory. And his mom told me that Caden had decided that on that Wednesday he was going to go to school and perform random acts of kindness all day in Jameson's honor. And it's one of those things that in our grief, actions help. And here was a little, I think he was 9 at the time, 10 at the time, a little 10-year-old boy who understood the world is much bigger than ourselves, and he was going to go start giving back to other people in our son's honor. So we decided to join him with that, and we asked everybody that we know to make Friday, March 6th, which was the day of Jameson's service, a random acts of kindness day. And word spread like crazy. And Erica and I woke up Friday morning, and our phone had already been lighting up with emails and texts and Facebook tags of all over the country. People were performing random acts, buying coffee at Starbucks, donuts, paying for breakfasts. Jameson, our school, Brevard Elementary School, had sent home a message making it a random acts of kindness day at school. And two of Jameson's best buddies had been holding the doors open for students, and just all kinds of kind acts that were being done in Jameson's honor. And then the picture that stuck out in my mind was somebody in Brevard had tagged me of an envelope with the hashtag Jameson's Joy on it. And at a local restaurant, and I'm going to shout out to Creekside Subs because they've been wonderful, and they're part of the start of Jameson's Joy. They had a customer ask them, "Hey, can we get an envelope on here to collect donations?" And they did, and all day long people were just throwing money in the envelope. They thought they were paying for funeral costs and dinners, and little did they know that in the future, and we'll talk more about this in other episodes, that they were building a fitness park for Brevard. But that was the birth of Jameson's Joy right there. And so I got together with some friends, started talking with people right away about how to start a nonprofit, got some board members together, a couple people who had really been touched by Jameson's story, and started meeting with a man named Matt Shaner, who is responsible for all of our imaging that we have so far. He is the one that created the logo that we have. I gave him some ideas of things I wanted. He tested it, and we finally ultimately ended up with the logo that you see on this page. And we went with the 3 hearts. The main color is the bluish color because being Duke fans, we had to have a dark blue in it. But we went with the heart because Jameson's heart. Those of you who know him know what a big heart he had for helping other people and just kindness. And I liked when Matt put the 3 hands together in the shape of the heart. It just grabbed me immediately because with all the kindness going on, I just see the hands sitting there helping each other out. And so that's why we chose the logo that we did. And Jameson's Joy was created. And I'm excited to talk about everything that we've already been able to accomplish thanks to wonderful, wonderful people that support us, and our big plans for the future. In future episodes, we've already created the fitness park that's built and installed, and kids are loving it in town. And now we've shifted our focus to working on connecting parents with their kids and getting them involved. So that is the story of Jameson's Joy and how it began.
Dan, it's a touching story, and yeah, I had to hold back my tears, to be honest with you. I know I've heard Jameson's story a couple times now, and like you said, it never gets easier. But the joy that you guys are bringing to your community now, and the way you're affecting so many people, including myself, I want to say thank you, of course, and I know they're all saying thank you too, because you guys are making a huge, huge difference in this world from such a tragedy. And I know Jameson is smiling down on you guys for doing that too, for sure.
Yeah, and I think one of the main thoughts in my head through all this is that it's real easy for when you're grieving to just sit at home, curl up in a ball, and avoid the world. And as hard as it is, that's not healthy. And we've chosen to intentionally try to trudge through the mud. We get carried by a lot of great people because we cannot do it on our own. But we're going to find a way to try to turn this into something positive because grief is awful. Losing anybody you love is awful. And losing a child is awful. And if we don't channel that into something good somewhere, it will just crush us.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's easy for it to consume every single second of your day if you let it. And these positive outreaches such as Jameson Joy and Miles Remington, they're giving not only us reasons to look forward, but other people ways, giving them ideas if they have grief or something that they can do, something maybe they can start on their own if they're going through their own grief. They can see that, hey, Dan and Chris, they're just regular guys. They're not rich or famous or anything like that. They're just regular guys who went through an extremely difficult event in their life, and they're still making positive from it.
Absolutely. Well, that kind of wraps up our first episode. For all our viewers, we want to thank you for tuning in and listening. Chris and I have big hopes for this. We're excited that we have a team of other people that have gone through grief. We've got some people who have lost spouses, husbands, children, parents, the whole gamut, siblings. We're going to have those people on over a variety of the episodes to share their stories. And again, ultimately, our goal is one of our goals is to hopefully just help you all who are listening understand our world and hopefully be able to connect with us in a way that is comfortable, because we know we're obviously uncomfortable with a lot of things, and we understand that you walking alongside of us is a very difficult thing to do with what do you say, what do you do. Chris, any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think like you said, we have some really big plans of explaining our grief and what we've gone through. My first year, Dan's been 2 years now, and answering a lot of questions because we reached out to a lot of people and said, hey, what kind of questions do you have? What do you wish you would have known before we lost our sons? And we got a lot of great questions sent into us in terms of how you can help support people that are dealing with grief, how you can act around them, what you can do to help them in really some of their most difficult moments. So that's what we're looking forward to. Dan, super excited to start answering these questions in future episodes, and I know we're hopefully going to be able to help some people.
Absolutely. And then I guess to end it tonight, Chris shared something pretty powerful with me when we were talking about this podcast. And I want to end it with that thought, Chris, about dads.
About, so in terms of why dads matter too, in terms of that? Is that what we're talking about? I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. When Mason first passed away, there's a lot of questions out there that you don't know who to even reach out to or answer. And, I think a lot of dads or men in general have this typical stereotype of, just being a macho man and not saying their feelings or their emotions or really getting it out. And, I think dads are overlooked a lot of times in that sense as well, and especially in grief. And as I was doing more research, I couldn't find, there's books out there. There are books for dads dealing with grief. I'm not going to say that there's not. But if you do a quick search for child loss, grief, info, it's a lot geared towards moms and mothers and how they can cope. And, as I did more research, I found some stuff for dads. But that's kind of how, I thought, man, it'd be great later on down the road to do a podcast. And then Dan happened to mention it to me, like, hey, I was thinking about doing a podcast. And I'm like, whoa, I got to jump on this with you, Dan. Like, this is what I've been thinking about doing. Um, a lot of men tend to not talk about the grief that they feel after they lose a child. Um, People think that they're okay, and a lot of dads are not. Dan and I, we know a lot of other dads that have lost children as well, and their mental health might not be as, not that our mental health is doing great either, but I feel like we're coping better than some of them, and it's important to remember that dads do matter too when it comes to this stuff in terms of grief. Now, I know we're going to be going into a lot of different forms of grief in terms of spouses and siblings and other loved ones. I can only personally attest to talk about losing my son. But, those are topics we're going to be talking about in the future, how dads can really deal with their grief and learn to deal with their emotions in that.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So, just to wrap up tonight, we thank everybody who's taken the time to listen to this. We do want so much for you to send us questions, comments, whatever. We want this podcast to be real. I've talked to Chris many times. I'm not interested in any fluff. I want this to be a real discussion about grief and how how Chris and I are doing, how our guests that will be on over the next few episodes are doing. With that, it's going to be raw and real, and I don't know about Chris very much, but I can guarantee you that I'm going to be shedding a lot of tears.
Yeah. Like I said, I took everything I had to not cry when you told Jameson's story or when I was telling Mason's story, so I don't know how long I can hold that in for. It's probably coming out for sure.
Yeah. So if you do have any questions about how to deal with grief, how to deal with somebody that's going through a tragedy, if you would, you can email them to the Jameson's Joy at info@jamesonsjoy.org, or you can send them through Facebook Messenger to either Chris or I, depending on who you're connected to. And we're keeping a big list, and we're gonna weave them into different episodes. We'll probably have many episodes of just all the frequently asked questions, but we want to answer everything that we can. And we'd ask you if you're interested, if you could go on Facebook, go to Miles for Mason and follow that page. Jameson's Joy supporters, I am 100% behind what Chris and Amanda are going to do for their son Mason. So I'm asking you to go follow their page, help spread their message too. And likewise, Miles for Mason supporters, hopefully you'll check out Jameson's Joy, because I think this is a partnership that over the course of time is going to really have a big impact on a lot of people together, and it's thrilling to be a part of it.
That's the goal, definitely. And I know I'm going to get down there eventually, and I'm going to run that course.
Absolutely.
That's my goal. I'm getting on that course because it looks fun, and I know Mason would love it too.
Yep. So thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next episode. Chris and I haven't talked too much about scheduling. Maybe, hopefully every week or two, we'll be able to get together and get a new episode out there pretty consistently for you. But thanks for tuning in, and we hope you all have an awesome day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.